DevOps is a field which is very difficult to get into. I have been getting so many messages and comments from my subscribers and friends on LinkedIn that they want to get a DevOps role. And the fastest way to get a DevOps job is to make sure that you properly give your interviews.
Hey everyone, welcome to Cloud Champ.
In this video, I will help you prepare for the DevOps interviews by providing you the most commonly asked DevOps interview questions along with the answers to help you understand how you can answer to these different interview questions as well. If you don't know, I work as a DevOps freelancer and I have to give DevOps interviews pretty much every day to my clients, to the companies that I want to work for. And in this video, I've shared all the common interview questions I get along with the answers that can help you land your DevOps job. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm here on my computer screen and we can start with the DevOps interview questions plus answers video. But before I do that, I just want to show you the different sections or topics that we will be covering in this particular video. So we start with the self-related questions, which are typically the questions that you get in the start of the interview. For example, what is your experience or what projects have you worked on? So we will cover questions related to that in this section. Moving on, we have Linux. Linux is an important operating system that every DevOps engineer should know. So we will cover some important Linux interview questions and answers. Next, we have networking. Networking is very, very crucial and it can be complex. So we cover some networking interview questions and answers in this section. Then we have Git. Git is used as a version control system and every DevOps engineer should know how to use Git and how to push your code. So we will cover some important Git questions in this section. Then we have cloud computing questions. So a DevOps engineer needs to know cloud and we will have some important cloud interview questions in this section here. Next, we have infrastructure as code, where we cover some questions on Ansible and Terraform. I am just to let you know, I'm not going to go deep or I will not have multiple questions in it because it can make this video lengthier. If you want to have a separate video on, let's say, AWS interview questions or Terraform interview questions or Kubernetes interview question, let me know in the comment section. I have documents and I have questions, so I can create a video or share the documents with you as well. Next, after IAC, we will cover some containers question where we will have questions on Docker and some on Kubernetes. Again, I'm not adding more questions about Kubernetes in this because it can make this video lengthier. So if you want a separate video on Kubernetes interview question, let me know in the comment section. After containers, we have CICD, very important topic and is also covered. So important interview questions regarding CICD will be covered in this section. Lastly, we have deployment questions, which is very, very important. So you will see different deployment strategies, also problems that you might have faced. These are very common questions regarding deployment, which are covered in this section. So now that you have an idea of what are we going to cover in this particular video, let's start with actually going through it. So now this is a Notion document that I created. And if you want me to share it with you, let me know. I can upload this as a PDF on LinkedIn, or I can also share this on GitHub. But if you don't want it, you can just follow through this video. So let's start with the first section, which is the self-related questions. Whenever you sit for the interview, the interviewer is going to have your resume with them and they will go through your resume to ask you questions depending on the information you have. And the first typical question is always, tell me about yourself and the projects you have worked on. So this is kind of a tricky question to know the knowledge of the candidate or also to see the confidence regarding the role they are appearing for. And this question, the answer for this question can differ based on the candidate. If the candidate is fresher, the answer will be different. If the candidate is experienced, the answer will be different. So I'm going to give you answers for both the cases, if you are an experienced person or if you are a fresher as well. Let's say you are an experienced one. You can say, I am a DevOps engineer with 5 years of experience and I have worked on various projects, including CICD setup with Jenkins, infrastructure provisioning with Terraform, configuration management with Ansible, and all the other stuff. But remember, whenever you name any of these tools, you should be very confident or you should have knowledge on those tools because the follow-up questions would be regarding those tools. If you don't have knowledge or if you're not confident, do not mention that tool. But let's say you are a fresher and you have no experience with DevOps. You can answer this question something like this. I'm a fresher with very keen interest in DevOps and I've done projects on Kubernetes, on Terraform. If given a chance, I can show you my skills and also learn from this job role. This way you will tell the interviewer that you have interest in DevOps and you also have some good projects on your resume, which will showcase that you are perfect fit for this role even though you are a fresher. But whenever you apply for fresher, make sure you have skills, certifications and good projects. If you don't have any projects, you can check out the projects in my channel and do those. Many of the subscribers have got jobs as a fresher doing the projects on my channel. So make sure you check it out. Moving on, the next question is, do you know any programming or scripting language? As a DevOps, you will need to know some amount of programming or scripting to automate different DevOps tasks, maybe like configuring an application or setting up databases, replicating anything. If you are not sure what could be some examples, you can check out this video and you can say that I am a person. For the answer, you can say, yes, I am proficient with Python and Bash scripting, and I can create scripts to automate different DevOps tasks and also to create Lambda functions in AWS. Next, what are your favorite tools and why? In this, you can tell all the demanding tools and also the tools that might be mentioned in the job description, but you need to briefly explain why you like them. So you can say, my favorite tools include Terraform to provision infrastructure, Jenkins to set up CICD, Ansible for configuration management, Docker for containers and all those stuff. But remember, again, if you are not sure or if you're not confident, do not mention the tool, because the next questions could be on those tools as well. Next is, this is I think very common and typical question. How do you stay up to date with the latest DevOps trends and technologies? In this, you can define that you read blogs, you attend conferences, and you also participate in online communities. So you can answer this like, I regularly follow DevOps blogs and I read them on Medium, on Ashnode. I attend conferences in my city, and I also subscribe to different newsletters or take the DevOps courses online to stay up to date in the DevOps community. Next question could be, how quickly can you learn new technologies and tools? This is to check how fast can you understand the system or the project. So you can mention, I'm a very fast learner and I can adapt to new tools and technologies very fast within few weeks. If given a chance, I can show them to you. The next question is, if asked, can you architect an application and how quickly can you do it? So the answer should always be yes. And you also need to mention the timeline. So you can answer this question as, yes, I can architect an application, and the time would depend on the complexity of the application. If it is a simpler one, I can do it in one day. But if it is complex, it can take me weeks to develop it. Moving on, this is also a very typical and a question that I have received probably in every interview. So what are some problems that you have faced while working on a project? In this, you need to share a problem and also need to explain what you learned from that specific problem. So you can talk about different problems like underestimating infrastructure capacity, or maybe cost management, or maybe managing secrets and other stuff. But you also need to emphasize the lesson you have learned from this particular experience or from this particular problem. So you could answer this question something like this. We were deploying an application, we underestimated infrastructure capacity, which caused performance issues. But then we learned the importance of capacity provisioning and load testing wherever deploying an application. So here you have defined the problem, also the lesson you have learned. And this can be anything. If you are not okay with any of the answers that I share, feel free to use any AI tool, ChatGPT or anything to create your own answers depending on your own experience. But you can follow these questions if you want. Moving on, the next section is Linux. Linux, as I said, is an important operating system that every DevOps engineer should know, because all DevOps tools are running on command. So you need to know this. The first question could be, how many, have you used any Linux flavors? If yes, which one? So you can tell any Linux flavors you have used, maybe Arch Linux, Fedora, Debian, or Amazon Linux, or Ubuntu CentOS. You can mention Ubuntu CentOS or Amazon Linux, because these are mostly the popular ones which are used in every company that you might be working in. Moving on, the next question is, what is a command to change the ownership and permission of a file or a directory in Linux? To change ownership, we use the chown command. For changing permission, we use chmod command. You can see the example here. And to show you that in a real way, I'll open this terminal. So I'm going to create a directory first for this video. So I'll say DevOps questions, and let's go in this directory. In this, I'm going to create a file. Let's say touch file. And if I show you, this file has owner as Nasi, and these are the permissions given to it. So if I want to change the owner, I can say chown command. I can say chroot and the name of the file, which is this. So when I'm doing this, I said operation not permitted. So I need to use sudo, which gives the command sudo rights. So when I do this, it's asking for the password. And now, if you check, it is the user owner is root now. Similarly, if I want to change the permission, I can give more permissions. Right now, this file has read write for owner, read write for a group, and read for others. So I can give execute access to this particular file just for user by using chmod command. So sudo. So now when I do ls-la, you can see the execute permissions are given. Earlier it was not there. So this is how you can give execute, or you can, this is how you can change permissions or ownership using chmod and chown command. Next, how do you manage and view running processes in Linux? So to view running processes, we use ps command, and we use top command to check the CPU and memory. So if I open my terminal again and run ps, you'll see this running processes. I can show more things by running ps aux command, which will give me more information on different processes running on it, and I can kill them by running kill command if you just want to know. Now let's see the top command as well. So top command is used to check the CPU memory used by different processes here. Moving on, the next question could be, what is SSH? So SSH or secure shell is a way to connect to remote Linux machine and also to run commands on them. The command for SSH is SSH-I, the key name, and then user name @host. Host can be the IP address of the machine that you want to connect to. So this is the command, and SSH is a secure way to connect to remote machines using a key pair or password authentication. Now, how to check memory and CPU as a Linux admin? So we use free command to check memory and the top command for CPU. We have already seen the top command. Let's see the free command now. So the free command is used to check the memory, total memory, and also how much is used, so that you can get to know if you have enough memory for your application or not. Next is cron job. So this is something which I think is very important and used in and asked in every interview question. What is a cron job? So cron job is nothing but a scheduled task in Unix-like operating system that allows you to automate repetitive tasks by specifying when and how often they should run. So to show you this, again, I have a cron job running in my machine, and you can check that by running cron tab -l command. This tells you that this is the cron job running, and I am running this script, which is mongodb backup.sh, to take backup for my Mongo database at this time. If you don't understand what this is, you can always copy and go to a particular website, which is crontab.guru, I guess. So crontab, and this is the website. Here you can specify, and this is nothing but just the time on when should this script run. So this will run at this time. If I show you this diagram here, it says this is the day of the week, month, hour, minutes, and you specify cron job by using a command which is crontab.e. So when I run this command, it will open up. So I'll select nano here. Let's go with nano, and then at the end of this line, you can specify your cron job that you want to run and also the time where it should be running. So this is cron job. Cron jobs are a scheduled task that you specify to automate repetitive tasks and also the time when you want it to run. Now, what is alias in Linux? And alias in Linux is a custom shorthand for longer commands, and it helps save time and reduce typing errors. So let's say you are a person who uses Linux all the time and you might be running big commands. So if you want to shortcut it, you can use alias. Alias can be used to make bigger commands shorter. For example, if I am running ls-lah all the time, I can just make it ll rather than something else. So I can do alias. So how do you define an alias? Alias can be defined using a command which is alias, obviously, and you will need to define the alias name. So I will say lh. I want to use lh rather than me defining ls-lah all the time. So I'll say ls equals to single quote ls-lah and this. Once I do this, rather than me defining lah all the time, ls-lah, I can just say lh now, and this gives me the same output. If you want to check the existing alias, you can just say alias here, and this will tell you that this is what it is. You can also do it for Kubernetes commands. So you can do this by saying kgp, which will be an alias for kubectl get pods. So you can say kubectl get pods, and then I don't have a cluster provisioned yet, so I'll get an error maybe, but you see this is the command which you can run rather than running this all the time. So this is how you can set alias, and this is what alias is. It is shorthand for longer commands. Next, let's look at the networking questions now. Networking again is a very complex and most asked in the interviews. So the first question is, what is DNS or domain name system, and how does it work? So DNS is a system that translates human readable domain names like example.com into IP addresses like this, and that computers use to identify each other on network. And this is true, but there are more other records as well. For example, you can see there is A record, CNAME record, MX record, TXT record. So DNS is a way for you to map IP address with the domain name or maybe a domain name with a domain name or something else. So this is what DNS or domain name system is. In AWS, you have Route 53, but you have many other DNS softwares or DNS, many other places where you can define your DNS like GoDaddy or other domain providers. Now, if one of the typical or most asked question for me is what is NAT or network address translation and why is it used? So if you look at this diagram, you will understand that NAT is used to safeguard the private servers and to expose a single IP address to the internet. So if you look at the definition now, a network address translation or NAT is a process of mapping IP addresses to another by changing the header of IP packets while in transit via router. This helps to improve security and decrease the number of IP addresses an organization needs. If you were asked with an example, you can say that the databases in private subnet are using NAT to expose databases to the internet so that no one from the internet can directly talk to the database, but they have to talk to the NAT first. So this is how NAT will secure the servers or the databases in the private subnet. Now, one important question again is the difference between TCP and UDP, and when do you use it? What is the difference? So TCP is used whenever the information is very important and you don't want to lose any packets of information, whereas UDP is used whenever you want to make sure that the information has to be transferred even though it is complete or not. So TCP provides you with reliable connection-oriented communication with error checking and retransmission of lost data, whereas UDP is connectionless, faster and used when some packets lost is acceptable, such as in real-time streaming. So I have some use cases here. TCP is used whenever you want file transfer or web browsing or emails, whereas UDP is used whenever you have real-time video streaming or online gaming. So you might see whenever you talk on video calls, there might be some buffer, but still the video call is in real time. You don't get the previous information. Same for online gaming. So this is the diagram to help you understand more properly. You can try to screenshot this and read about it as well. Now, another important question is what are 7 layers in OSI? So these are different 7 layers, and I have this diagram here to explain you what each of these layers do. I remember a question getting on this after I got this question was, where does the application load balancer and network load balancer fall in this layers? So the application load balancer is obviously the 7th one, which is the application layer, but the network load balancer falls in this layer with transport layer, which is the level 4. This is why network load balancer is also called as layer 4 load balancer. Next, we have firewall. What is a firewall? It is a network security device that monitors the traffic coming in and going out to make sure that there are no problems. So if you look at this diagram, this is your network and you have a firewall set up here so that the person who is not authorized should not go in and access your server. This can be done by security groups in AWS where you define that particular traffic should be allowed and others should not be allowed. So it's a network security that monitors and controls incoming and outgoing traffic based on defined security rules, and it acts as a barrier between trusted internal network and untrusted external network. So you use firewalls to save your infrastructure or your network from bad actors, from hackers, or also from other attacks like DDoS attacks or other different attacks that we have. Next, what is a ping command? So ping command is used to test network connectivity by sending ICMP echo request to target host and measuring the response time. To show you this in action, let's open my command and try to ping a server. So I'm going to ping google.com here. If the connection between me and the Google is available, I should get ICMP request back. If not, I should get errors. So this is ping command is usually used to test the network or connection between two different servers. So from local machine to the google.com wherever the server is. So you can see I'm getting the response back, which means there is a connection between them. This is a server where the google.com is, and I'm talking to it from my local machine using ping command. So this is usually done to check the network connectivity between two different servers. Now, what is ifconfig or ipconfig command in Windows? Ifconfig is used to display network information like IP address, MAC address, and network configuration details. Again, to show you, I'm going to run the ifconfig command in my machine. If you're using Windows, try to run this in your PowerShell, which is ipconfig command. So you'll get all the information about your device, which is network information like MAC address and IP addresses, or in your terminal. Moving on, the next section is Git. Git is a version control system, and the first question is, what is Git and how do we use it in DevOps? So Git is a distributed version control system used to track changes in source code during software development. In DevOps, Git is used for version controls. for collaboration and also to automate through CICD pipelines. So we use Git repositories as a source for CICD pipelines. And this is how you should answer the question whenever asked in the interview. Moving on, it says, explain me the workflow of how you push your code from a local machine. And I have this diagram here to explain you how you push your code. But to make things more easy, let me show you the demonstration here. So I'm going to open my GitHub, try to clone a code from my Git repositories to my local machine and show you how you can push your code after you make a change. So let's go to repositories here. I'm going to clone one of the projects that I have done very previously and also have a video on. If you haven't done the project, make sure to check it out. The project is the monitoring project on Kubernetes, which is this, So this has 64 stars. Thank you for everyone who has started. Let's go and clone it. To clone the code, you need to get this HTTPS URL. I'm going to open my terminal and go to the folder that we created right now, which is DevOps Questions. Okay. To clone it, you need to run the command git clone command. Cloning means getting the code from your local machine, from your repository to local machine. Once I do this, it's going to clone it. Okay, let me show you the file that I have. I'm going to go in this particular folder. And if I do ls, you'll see there's app.py, ECR and all this thing. So let's try to edit the app.py here. So if I do a nano app.py, if you see here, the app.py is saying a message, high CPU memory detected, scale up. Let's try to change this message. You don't need to understand this properly because this is not a video regarding this. If you want to understand and how this project runs, make sure you check out the video, which is Cloud Native Monitoring Project video. Now I'm going to change this line here, which is a message. So I'll say scale up rather than scale up. We'll show some respect and say please scale up. So let's save this. Now when I run git status command, it will tell me what change I have made and what is not there. So it says I have modified an app.py, and if I want to go ahead and change this, I need to first run this commands, which is git add command, git commit command, git pull, git push command. So let's try to run it. I'll say git add and the name of the file that I edited, which is app.py. So I'll run git add app.py. Once I do that, I'll say git commit with the message. So git commit -m with the message of what change have I made. So I'll say message. A message could be updated app.py or update to app.py, because the git commit should always be in past tense. Update app.py. Now when I update it, I need to run the command git push or git pull as well if I want to fetch the changes, but it's optional. So I'll say git push origin and the name of the branch. So branch, you can find the name here. I'm pushing it to main branch, which is not a good practice if you're doing it in production. You should always push in the feature branch. So git push origin main. When I do this, it will ask me for the username, obviously, and then it will ask me for my password. So along with my username, I'm going to put my password here. Once I put my password, this change will be pushed from my local machine to the remote machine. You can see a commit has been made, and I can confirm that by going to my repo here. So let's refresh the page. Once I refresh, you will see the commit has been made 3 minutes ago. Let's see the commit. You can check, click on this commit ID here and check the change. So the change was to add a please here. And this is how you can push your code from your local machine to your GitHub repository. To know more in depth about Git concepts, make sure you check out the Git video that I created, which will help you understand Git more properly. So you'll see now the new code has please in it. Moving on, let's go to the next question. The next question is, how do you revert a commit that you made in your repository? We usually revert a commit because we might have made a wrong commit, or we don't want that change to be there. So we use git revert command to do it. For example, let's say I don't want to have this please anymore, and I want to revert the commit or undo the commit. How do I do that? I do that by using git revert command and adding the git commit hash. So let me show you this with an example again. So I made this commit, which was to add a please. I don't want it anymore. How do I revert it or undo it? So I will first run the command git log command. This will give me the git commit hash, which I need to copy, and you need to copy for the same one which you want to revert. So I made this change now, and I want to revert this now. So I'll copy, and I'll then run the command. Let me exit from this. So git revert and the name or the commit hash here. Once I do this, it will show me the thing that it is going to do. So I will review it and exit from here. Okay. Now, if you see, it says revert has been done, and if I do cat app.py, it will not have please anymore. But this is here, it's not, the change has not been pushed here. So I need to go ahead and push it again. And to do that, I'll do the same thing, git push origin main. It will ask me for my username again and my password, which I have here. So when I push this, you will see the change has been made. Let me go ahead and refresh this page now. So when I refresh this, the please will be gone because we have reverted the commit. So the commit has been reverted now. So it says there's a new commit, revert commit. This is how you can revert the commit. And now I hope you understood it. Next question could be, what is a branch in repository? This is very important because as a DevOps engineer, you should always push changes into your own branch. You should not be changing in the main branch as I did right now. It's not a good practice. If you say that you're pushing in main branch, you might not be hired because companies are very strict about pushing in the feature branch. So branch is nothing but a separate line of development that allows multiple developers to work on different features or bug fixes simultaneously without affecting the main code base. So if I try to explain you this, let's say you are a DevOps engineer and you're working in a company, you might be making a change in the code, then you have to create your own branch and push it. Then the senior DevOps guys will check your change and merge the code in the main branch or the master branch only when the code is fine, if it has been tested and everything works fine. So you need to explain this and never mention that you might be pushing in the main branch. Moving on, the next section is the cloud section where we discuss some questions, interview questions on cloud. So the first question could be, what cloud are you familiar with, or what cloud have you worked on in your previous company or in your previous projects? So you can say whichever cloud you're familiar with. Let's say you will say, I'm familiar with AWS, Azure and GCP. Then the question would be regarding the cloud. It would be, what is VPC in cloud? And I've seen this question a lot of times. So this is a very typical question in the cloud domain. So VPC, or virtual private cloud, is a virtual network within a cloud provider's infrastructure that you define, and it allows you to isolate, control and deploy your resources such as virtual servers and databases. So VPC is where you can define a network, which is the IP CIDR range, and you will then deploy your resources like servers and databases or storage in this virtual or isolated network. So next question could be, what is difference between public subnet and private subnet and what differentiates it? So public subnet is something which is connected to the internet, whereas private is not connected to the internet. So people on the internet can talk to public subnet, but not to the private subnet. And if you read this here, public subnet is accessible directly from the internet, while private subnet is not. Public subnets are typically used for resources that need public access like web servers, while privates are used for resources that should not be directly exposed like databases. And what differentiates is that public subnet is connected to the internet gateway, whereas private subnets are connected to the NAT gateway. What is the difference between reserved instance and spot instance? This is something I have been getting a lot because I've been working with clients who use AWS and they have instances. So if a company is using AWS and they have instances that they want to save cost on, so you need to know this question, which is reserved instance is used for long-term reservations of compute capacity, which offers you with discount, whereas spot instances are used for instances that you want to run for a short amount of time and can be okay if they are deleted because they are deleted on short notice. So you can try to read this description or go through my video where I explain to you all the different launch type, including on-demand, reserved, spot, dedicated and everything. So make sure you check it out to answer this question more properly. Next is, what is CloudFormation? Many companies that use AWS usually use CloudFormation to automate their infrastructure provisioning. So CloudFormation is nothing but just an infrastructure as code tool used to provision all the different resources in AWS. So you can create stacks and templates to create resources like VPC, EC2, S3 using CloudFormation. So it's a service that allows you to define AWS infrastructure as infrastructure as code, and you can create, update and delete using JSON or YAML templates. So moving on, the next section is infrastructure as code, where we look at tools like Ansible and Terraform, which are, I think, very, very popular. You might see some questions on Chef if a company is using it, but I have not included this in this particular video. So what are popular IAC tools that you have used? You can mention all of them, maybe Terraform, CloudFormation. Now, one typical question is, what is difference between Terraform and Ansible and when do you use it? So Terraform is used for infrastructure provisioning. Ansible is used for configuration management. So you use Terraform to create resources, but you use Ansible to configure it. And I've explained this very properly in this particular video, which you can check out, and you can read this description or the answer here. So Terraform is used for infrastructure provisioning and management, while Ansible is used for configuration management and automation tool. Terraform focuses on describing the desired state of infrastructure, while Ansible defines how to configure servers. And Ansible uses playbook, Terraform uses state file and configuration files to define infrastructure. So next question could be, what is a playbook in Ansible? So playbook is nothing but a file which defines what task or what configuration do you want to be done on different servers. So playbook in Ansible is YAML file that defines a set of tasks and configurations to be executed on remote servers. And you can see an example of a playbook here to install Apache web server on a Amazon Linux, I guess, because this is saying HTTPD. Next is, what is a state file in Terraform? So remember, state file is something which defines or records what changes have you done according to the configuration you have in your code. So state file defines what things have been created or deleted. So it is a file to keep track of resources that Terraform manages, and it's used to store information about the current state of infrastructure and helps Terraform plan and apply changes accurately. So this is a state file. Usually companies, they put their state file in remote state backend, so you need to understand that as well. So remote state backend is a mechanism that allows Terraform to store information in centralized location like Amazon S3 or Google Cloud Storage or Azure Blob Storage. There are many other options you can store, and this is how you do it by defining the backend block. If you are not sure how to do it, make sure to check out the video that I created on how you can set up your Terraform state on remote backend. Moving on, the next section is containers, which is very, very important if company is using Docker and Kubernetes. So first typical question that you get is, what is the difference between virtualization and containerization? So to understand this, I have a diagram here. If you look at this diagram, virtualization means having a virtual machine, which is a hypervisor, to create different operating system on a physical server. Whereas containerization is where you have a Docker engine or container engine, which can be Docker or any other containerization tools, and you have applications on containers which can be very lightweight, and they don't operate, they use the same operating system, but they have different containers which have different operating system as well. So virtualization means running multiple virtual machines on a single physical server, each with its own operating system. It's like having separate houses with different families in a single building. Whereas containerization means running isolated containers on a shared operating system. It's like having our apartments in single buildings where each apartment is self-contained but share common infrastructure. So this might help you understand the concept, but if not, feel free to use any other definitions online on different blogs or using ChatGPT or any AI tool. But I think this diagram is perfect to help you understand how virtualization and containerization are different. Here you have VM machines, here you have containers. These are very lightweight, and you can see they are not using all the resources, whereas here they are not as lightweight and you have separate guest operating system. Now, what problem does Docker solve and why companies are using it? So Docker solves different problems like isolation, security, environment management. You might see problems like it runs on a machine, and that is what Docker solves. So Docker solves the problems of consistent, portable and efficient application deployment, and also the dependencies into containers, ensuring they run reliably across different environments and systems while maintaining security and scalability. This answer can differ depending on the question, but this is a common answer for advantages of Docker. Next, what is a Docker file and why do you use it? So Docker file is nothing but a document that defines how should be a Docker image created. As an example here, so you have different instructions on how you can create a Docker file. So this Docker file is used to create an image out of it. As you can see, this is a Docker file. I can build an image, and this image then can be stored on Docker Hub or on ECR. You can read the description here, which says Docker file is a script that defines the steps to create Docker container image. It is used to automate the containerization of an application, making it reproducible and shareable after you upload it on ECR or Docker Hub. Now I explain the process of workflow of how a Docker container is created. Again, this is very important for DevOps engineers and asked in many interviews, so that the interviewer can get to know that the candidate has idea of creating containers and managing them as well. So the first step is to create Docker file, then you build an image out of it and you run a container. So Docker file, then build image, run container, and then the container will be running your application in isolated environment. Another question could be on container orchestration. So how do you manage multiple containers? We manage it using container orchestration tool like Kubernetes, but there are other options like Rancher, Mesos, Nomad, Docker Swarm as well, and you can choose to answer them. but I am not including more questions on Kubernetes. As I said, if I include them, this video can be very lengthy, but I do have many Kubernetes interview questions. If you want me to create another video on Kubernetes interview question, let me know in the comment section. Moving on, another very important topic is CICD, and I explained CICD very well in this particular video. If you haven't checked it out, make sure to check it out. This will help you understand CICD completely, and it also has a project in it to make sure you understand it through hands-on as well. So one typical question is, what is CI and CD in CICD, to help you understand that the candidate has knowledge on CICD and not just the definition. So CICD is continuous integration, which is a practice of automatically building and testing code changes frequently, and CD is a way to continuously deliver and deploy your code on different environments. So I try to explain this very properly in this video. I would recommend you checking it out if you don't know what is CI and CD in CICD. Now they might ask you, what tools are you CICD tools are you experienced with? So you can mention any of the tools that you are experienced with, but make sure you have some knowledge or you have done some projects on it. Now there can be a coding test, or maybe a test to create a CI/CD pipeline. So one test I remember was for an interview I was giving for a freelancing project on Turing, and they asked me to create a CI/CD pipeline. So you can create a CI/CD pipeline using these steps, which is, first you need to have a Git repository and use a tool. If you're using Jenkins, you might need to use plugins, but if you're using GitLab or GitHub Actions, you need to create a file, CI/CD file. And then you need to automate test, build the package, deploy the application. If test passed, then you can move it to production environment after you do the staging environment. So now let's look at some deployment questions in this section 9, which is the last section in our DevOps interview video. I know this can be lengthy, but this is very important and will help you to get your job. If you get a job practicing this video, let me know in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. So the first typical question is, explain staging, production and testing environment. This is very important and every DevOps engineer should know. So I have a diagram here along with the explanation. So development is where you create or write the code and test it out. So if I'm creating a application, I will write the code in my VS Code and I will check it out in my own local machine. So my local machine is a development environment or a testing environment. Now if I want to upload this on cloud, I will create a staging environment on cloud, which will be very same to my production environment. But first I will upload to my staging environment, check if everything is working fine, and if everything is working fine, I will make my application live by deploying it on production environment. So this should be the workflow. First you test it in your development environment, then you move it to the staging environment, which is a pre-production environment, and if everything is working fine, all the tests are checked, then you can go with the production environment. Next, there can be questions on different deployment strategy. One of them is blue-green strategy. There can be blue-green, active-active, active-passive, canary deployment, and other ones. This is something that I've got often, and this is why I've included this in particular DevOps interview question video. So what is a blue-green deployment? It's nothing but you have two similar environment, and you will first route your traffic to this environment, but now you have deployed a new version. So you want to change your traffic from here to here. So this is how you can do it, and you can also roll back if there are any issues with the new environment. You can just go back to the previous one. So blue-green deployment is a deployment strategy where you have two identical environments which are blue and green, and you switch traffic between them when deploying new versions. This minimizes downtime and also allows you to roll back if any issue arises. Similar to this is canary deployment. So another question could be, what is canary deployment? And we use this, let's say whenever you have a new version, you want the new version to be shown to only some amount of users, and if everything works fine, then it can be done to all the users. So we have a application which is 1.0, and now we have new version, so I'm giving this access to only beta users or some users, and then if everything works fine, it can be available for everyone. So canary deployment is a strategy where a new version of an application is deployed to small subset of users or servers, allowing for testing and validation. If it performs well, then it can be gradually rolled out to entire user base. So this is what canary deployment is. If you have any issues, any doubts with any of these questions, let me know in the comment section. I can explain you this in very simpler manner as well. So next, a very common question is, what is the biggest issue you have faced during a deployment, maybe a production deployment or maybe a project that you have done? So you can explain something maybe with an answer like, most significant challenge I faced was managing a sudden influx of traffic during a product launch. we had to quickly scale our application to handle the load, which involved optimizing database queries and adding more server. So here you have defined the issue and also how you solved it. This way, you haven't left the answer incomplete. You have also mentioned how you solve it. This defines your troubleshooting knowledge and troubleshooting skills as well. So this is how you should answer this particular question. And last question we have is, how do you scale your application? So this can be, if the application is on AWS EC2 servers, you can use auto scaling groups. If the application is on Kubernetes, you can use horizontal pod scaling, or you can make the changes in the you can scale up your deployments and also other options, but this is what you can say depending on the application scaling. Now, this is also one of the important questions. How do you roll back? What is your disaster recovery strategy? So you can roll back to previous version of the application by using container orchestration tool. So in Kubernetes, you have rollback strategies as well. But if you're not using Kubernetes, you can have blue-green deployment, or you can also use load balancers for it. So I roll back by deploying previous version of the application or by using container orchestration tool to revert to the last stable state. But I also ensure comprehensive monitoring and alerts to detect failure earlier using tools like Prometheus. So whenever there's an issue, I should be alerted before anything occurs. Now, how do you automate your deployment? We can automate deployment by using scripting languages like Bash or Python, or using CICD. So I automate deployments using scripts and CICD pipelines using tools like Jenkins or Travis or GitLab. This includes building, testing, and deploying code automatically. Also continuous monitoring to make sure systems are up and properly working. So this was all for our DevOps interview questions and answers. I hope this video was informative. If you found this video useful and informative, do let me know in the comment section. Please like this video as well, because I've spent a lot of time creating this document. If you want this document to be shared, let me know in the comment section and I can share this. One important tip that I would share with you: after the interviewer has done asking you a question, and if he's asking you that do you have any questions for me or maybe for the company, you should always ask questions that this explains that you have interest in the company and also the project. Some questions could be, you should ask, what is the project that I'm going to work on? What is the size of the team? Or maybe like, what roles can I expect? What task can I expect when I join the company? This way, interviewer can get to know that you have interest working in that company, which might help you get the job. So this is all. I hope this video was informative. Like this video, subscribe to my channel. Thank you. Bye.